Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something literally all of us experience, a really fascinating breakdown of how our online environments have completely gamified our most deeply held beliefs. We're going to look at how social media platforms are basically acting like an invisible dealer in a very high-stakes game. They're exploiting the random hand you were dealt at birth, but more importantly, we're going to figure out how you can actually shuffle the deck yourself. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's start off with this incredibly powerful quote from Noah Eckstein. He delivered this during a speech at Harvard's 2026 commencement, and it went absolutely viral. Why? Because he hit the nail on the head regarding something we are all feeling but rarely know how to articulate. He pointed out that people are getting louder, they're getting angrier, and they're progressively less capable of hearing anyone outside their own tribe. Now, the key here is he wasn't asking people to just magically agree with each other. He was calling for something much, much rarer right now. Just the sheer willingness to try and understand a different worldview.
And you know what's crazy about this? It perfectly highlights a huge, almost painful irony. The exact problem Eckstein identified, our fading capacity to hear outside our own little groups, was the core message. But the medium? Well, that speech spread like wildfire across the exact same social media platforms that are implicitly fueling this very polarization in the first place. Section 1. The modern polarization problem.
Because what Eckstein was talking about on that stage, it isn't just a failure of politics, or a failure of our education systems, or even some moral failure of human character. Modern polarization is increasingly an engineered, algorithmic outcome. The algorithm simply takes the cards you already hold and amplifies them until those cards completely harden into your absolute identity. And honestly, the most terrifying part of all this is that it's happening to most people while they have absolutely zero idea they're even trapped inside it.
Section 2. Your random starting hand. To really get how we get stuck in this trap, I want you to think about the exact moment you were born as being dealt a hand in poker. It was completely random, and you had absolutely no input. As a player in this so-called game of life, take a look at the cards you were handed. You got a physical body and specific neurological wiring. You were born into a family with a certain level of wealth and stability, or maybe a lack thereof. You were handed a cultural and racial identity. You were dealt a country and a native language. Now, some of these cards turn out to be massive gifts, while others can be incredibly heavy burdens. But the bottom line, not a single one of them was your choice.
Which brings us to a term gamers will definitely recognize: NPC mode, or non-player character. In real life, NPC mode is basically when a person just drifts along. They absorb the values and political assumptions of their starting environment without ever really pausing to examine their hand. Now, I want to be super clear about this. Being in NPC mode is absolutely not about being stupid. It is simply the default state of every single human being on Earth. The NPC isn't broken. They are just asleep to the game.
Section 3. Enter the invisible dealer. So, what happens when a sleeping player bumps into a highly engineered system? Well, here is the crucial thing to understand about the social media algorithm. It's not some natural law of the universe like gravity. It is a deliberately built, engineered system designed with one relentless objective, and that is to maximize the time you spend on their platform. It literally watches your behavior, your pauses, your clicks, what you scroll past, just to discover which cards you play. And the second it figures out your suit, it feeds you more and more of it. Now, that might sound pretty neutral, but it is actually incredibly dangerous. Look at this pipeline. It always starts as a mirror. It just naturally reflects your views back to you. But then, slowly, it narrows your inputs until you're in a tunnel. And eventually, if you aren't paying attention, that tunnel becomes a cage. The system shows you things you almost agree with, then pushes you just 1 degree further, then another, until what was once a moderate position completely hardens into absolute certainty.
The wild thing is, the algorithm doesn't hate you. It's not trying to deceive you or even consciously manipulate you in some malicious way. It only needs to optimize for engagement. As this quote powerfully points out, you are not the customer in this transaction. You are the crop. Let that sink in for a second.
Section 4. The NPC feedback loop.
Let's break down exactly how this mechanism affects us day to day. Back in the old world, our starting hand was moderated by natural friction. You had coworkers who voted completely differently than you did, or neighbors practicing a different religion. Just living in proximity to others created a constant, low-grade exposure to outside viewpoints. But in today's algorithmic world, extreme relevance completely removes all of that friction. Every challenge to your worldview arrives totally stripped of context, framed purely as an attack, and surrounded by a community that is already outraged. Differences of opinion literally turn into heavily guarded fortresses.
And here is where it gets really tricky. Outrage often feels like awakening, but the truth is, it's usually just a much louder form of sleep. The algorithmic feedback loop actually tricks people in NPC mode into experiencing their programming as righteous conviction. They haven't awakened at all. They've just been reassured by their feed that every single piece of information they see totally agrees with what they already believed.
Section 5. Awakening the PC player.
All right, so how do we actually break out of this? An awakened player, a player character, escapes by asking the questions the NPC never even thinks to ask. Let's start with question number 1. Why am I being shown this content? You've got to start actively questioning the invisible hand that's serving up your feed.
Question 2. What emotion is this trying to trigger right now? Take a close look at your immediate physical reactions to what you see online. Are you being deliberately manipulated into a state of defense or outrage?
And finally, question 3. What viewpoint is entirely absent from my feed? You have to aggressively go out looking for the blind spots that the dealer has deliberately hidden from your board. Once you start asking those questions, you can actually make moves to hack the dealer. First up, unfollow the accounts that exist solely to generate pure outrage. Just get rid of them. Second, actively search for the best possible argument on the other side, not because you want to convert yourself, but to train the algorithm that you demand a full board experience. And third, start using buttons like not interested or see less as strict programming commands to the dealer, not just polite suggestions. You are in control of the inputs.
Section 6. Playing the full board.
Because you see, hacking your media diet is really just step 1. Notice the stark contrast we have here. An algorithmic mind is short-term, it's highly reactive, it's trapped in whatever starting suit it was dealt, and it's constantly busy dehumanizing the community. But a successful, awakened player, they develop what we're calling a cube mind. They think with a long horizon. They're able to hold multiple perspectives at once, and they focus on actually building community legacy and stewardship. Remember, the feed is literally just one of many game boards in life. If you let it trap you, you are never going to be able to build that true, long-term legacy.
Which brings us to a hard but totally fundamental truth. An awakened player who cannot hear someone who disagrees with them is not actually awake. They're just a more polished NPC. Seeking out alternative viewpoints isn't about pretending all views are equally valid. You still have your values, for sure, and you still act with deep conviction. But listening without surrendering your own beliefs, that's strategic reconnaissance. If you literally cannot hear someone who's holding a different hand, then you don't actually understand the board you're playing on.
Look, we all fall back on our default cards from time to time, especially when we're tired or afraid or just feeling a bit lonely. It happens. But the goal here is to just pause before playing your next card. The algorithm is incredibly sophisticated, and it's designed from the ground up to keep you locked inside your starting suit, mostly because that's what is most profitable for them. But now you actually see the machine. You know the mechanism. So I'm going to leave you with this one thought. The dealer's dealing. The cards are on the table. Are you playing or are you being played?